Okay, let us begin. Welcome, class. Let us start here. We're going to start with the nervous system, and there are two parts to the nervous system. Does anyone remember? Can anyone remember from your anatomy days? Make sure I'm writing good here. The central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. So, the central nervous system, let's draw here. Okay, the central nervous system has two components. Anybody remember what those two components are? The brain and the spinal cord. Okay. And so here, of course, we have the brain. Do that over. Y'all forget. No, you all still draw what you're drawing. I just need to put this on another level, another layer. Okay, we're going to have our brain. This is going to seem really elementary now, but it's important that you have to, there are some concepts you have to understand. So we have the brain and the spinal cord. And these make up our central nervous system. Now, coming off of the central nervous system, there are nerves that come away from the brain. Let's give them another color here. So there are nerves that come away from the brain. We call these cranial nerves. But they are not part of the central nervous system. They're part of the peripheral nervous system. And we have nerves that come off of the spinal cord. And what do you think these nerves are called? Spinal nerves, exactly. There are 12 pairs of cranial nerves, and there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Okay, and so we have, I'm just going to put here 12 cranial nerves, and there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. Now, we're only going to be interested in the peripheral nervous system because your central nervous system kind of does what it does. Is kind of does the same thing all of the time. You can't really change it. Okay. Now, let's look at there are 4 components of the peripheral nervous system, and let us look at those. So what I'm going to do here, let me see if we've missed anything. So here we have the central nervous system in the middle. Why do you think it's called the central nervous system? It controls everything, and it's in the center of the body. And the peripheral nervous system is so named because it's peripheral to the central nervous system. Those are the nerves that go away from the central nervous system. So the central nervous system is in the middle of the body, and off to the side we have the peripheral nervous system. So any nerves that remain within the brain and the spinal cord, those are going to be central nerves. And the nerves that come out of the brain and out of the spinal cord, those are going to be peripheral nerves. Does that make sense? That should be real simple. Very good. Okay, now we're just going to look at both of them. We're going to really focus on the peripheral nervous system. So I'm going to go to a new layer here, and so you all, that's like a new sheet of paper for you. So what I'm going to do here is draw myself a person. Going to be drawn not to scale because it's going to be a very rough drawing of a person, but I need to draw things really wide because I'm going to need lots of space here. Okay, now here we're going to have the brain. I'm not going to talk about it a whole lot, and then we're going to have the spinal cord. Okay. The peripheral nervous system does 4 things. It does 4 main things. 4 main things that the central nervous system does, or the peripheral nervous system. Let's say that let's see here, a spider crawls on your arm. Do you think you would be able to feel that? Or someone hits your arm, would you be able to feel that? You would be able to feel that. And the reason you'd be able to feel that is because there are, let's get a good color here. There are nerve endings that go to your arm or to your skin, and they send this information. They send this information back to the spinal cord, and it goes through a little nerve here. The nerve body is like right here, and then that nerve body, well, let's put it a little closer. It's a little closer to the spinal cord. There's a nerve body, and then it takes that information back to the spinal cord, and then the spinal cord takes that information to the brain, and now you know that you felt something. Does that concept make sense? Okay, very good. Also, let's say you have a muscle here. Let's say you want to flex your muscle, and you have a muscle here. There are nerves that leave. So for this first one, the signal is coming in this direction. But sometimes your brain can say, okay, I want my muscle in my arm to move. So there's a nerve that comes out of the spinal cord, and it innervates the muscle, and it tells the muscle to contract. That's the second thing that the peripheral nervous system does. Does that make sense? Okay. So it can sense information from your body parts or your non-organ parts, and it can send information to your non-organ parts. Make sense so far? Also, the peripheral nervous system can, let's say here you have, now let's look at our organs. What organ do you think that is? The liver, very good. And so your peripheral nervous system can sense information from your, I need another color so you can see the nerve, from your organs. So here, let's say you have a nerve that innervates the liver here, and it sends that information back to the spinal cord. And so you may need to know, well, how much glucose is there in the liver? And the liver needs to be able to tell the brain that, so that the brain can figure out what to do with that glucose. Does that make sense? And so that's the third function of the peripheral nervous system. And the last function of the peripheral nervous system, let's say you have another organ. Let's start ourselves a good organ here. Doesn't matter what organ it is. Just any organ will do. Anybody have any idea what that looks like? Okay, very good. The stomach. Okay, and so now we can, let's say there's food in your stomach, but now you need your stomach to churn the food and to digest the food. The stomach doesn't do that on its own. The peripheral nervous system has to tell the stomach, okay, stomach, there's food in you, now start digesting it. So there are nerves that go from the central nervous system, and they tell the stomach to digest the food. And so we have this nerve, the nerve that goes to an organ, or a nerve that goes out of the spinal cord, or out of the, and it tells the organ what to do. That's called a motor nerve. A motor nerve. So this nerve here is this one here is a motor nerve. So this is a motor function. I'm going to put it like right here, motor. Okay. And so there are motor nerves for our organs. There are motor nerves, and then here, this one is coming out. This is a motor nerve for our muscles. And on the right side of our model here. We have sensory nerves. And so we can sense information from our liver, from our organs, and we can sense information from the rest of the body. So those are the 4 functions of the peripheral nervous system.
Could you repeat that, please?
Okay. Let's do it this way. Has everyone drawn this? Okay, I'm going to represent this another way because I knew this would be kind of tough. So I was kind of ready for that. Okay. Kind of get rid of everything here. Now, let's look at I'm going to draw here the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system has 2 components to it. Okay. It has a sensory division and it has, what's the other division going to be? Motor division, exactly. And so before we continue, let's make sure we understand the 2 of these. So the peripheral nervous system has a sensory division. That means if something touches my arm or touches my hand, there are nerve endings in my hand that send that information up my arm to my spinal cord, to my brain, and now I know I felt something. That's sensory. Does that make sense? Or if there is let's say food goes into my stomach and my stomach stretches. Now, because there's food in it. When my stomach stretches, there are going to be nerve endings in my stomach that are going to sense that stretch, send that information to the spinal cord, to my brain. It's going to tell my brain, you're full, you don't need to eat anymore. So that's the sensory division. There are 2 parts of the sensory division. The one on the organs and the one on the rest of the body. Now the one on the organ, the sensory division on the organs, is called the visceral sensory because the word visceral means organ. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's put here. So the sensory division has 2 parts. I'm going to zoom in here just so I can write better. There is a visceral sensory division, and so the visceral sensory division senses all the information that's coming from my organs, like my heart, my lung, my spleen, my kidney, all the organs in the body. And there's another sensory division that comes from everything in my body that's not my organ, like my skin. That's not an internal organ. Or my muscles. That's not an internal organ. So that's called the somatic sensory division. The word somatic means body. And so it's the opposite of organ. So you can, because if you thought about it technically, we can say, well, the organs are part of the body. But somatic means, the word soma itself means body. But in this context, somatic means non-organ. So there's a somatic sensory division. So let's look at this. So our peripheral nervous system has 2 components, a sensory division and a motor division. The sensory division can be divided into the visceral sensory division, which senses information coming from the organs, and the somatic sensory division, which senses information that's coming from everywhere else in the body, like our muscles, our tendons, our skin. Make sense so far? Excellent. Now, let's talk about the next division, the motor division. So the motor division itself has 2 components. There is a motor division that tells the organs to do something. It tells your heart start pumping more blood, or tells your kidneys start producing more urine, or it tells your stomach start digesting more food. So does anybody have any idea what this half of the motor division is going to be called? The one that tells the organs what to do. The visceral motor division, exactly. The visceral motor division. And there's the other half of the motor division tells your muscles what to do, or tells your skin what to do, or mainly your muscles. Does anyone have any idea what that motor division is going to be called? Somatic motor division, exactly. It should make sense. Things should make sense. Somatic motor division. And so that's the entire, this is the entire peripheral nervous system. That's the only one we're going to be concerned with, just the peripheral nervous system. Is everyone okay with that? But now, in the biochemical aspects of the peripheral nervous system, of the entire peripheral nervous system, aren't of great interest. Only a specific part of it is. But we'll talk about that in just a second. Okay. But if everyone understands the 4 divisions, I want to go back to our drawing. Everyone okay with the 4 divisions? Excellent. Let's go back to our drawing now. So I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. This is our drawing. We don't want to get rid of that one. Now, how shall I explain this? If you looked at a model of a spinal cord, or looked at a model of spinal nerves, there is a portion. Now, if you just have, this is just one, as we have it drawn here, this is just one nerve fiber or one axon. But there are several of them here. So we could have another one here. And let's put another color. Let's put 3 here. And they all have their nerve bodies attached here. And so it's like a bidirectional neuron, because the nerve fibers go in both. It's not the conventional neuron. You know, conventional neurons that you learn in A&P, you know, you have your axons and you have your one dendrite. These sensory ones they have just the nerve body, a stem, and the axon goes in both directions. That's so it can sense information. But what I want you to know here is that there is something that surrounds, there's a sheath of tissue that surrounds the entire nerve. And it gets big right here, has a bulbous region right there. And what I want to know from you, okay, I'm going to just color that bulbous region here. And this is going to be hard for you to draw this, but I need you to be able to see it. Now that bulbous region, so there's a layer of connective tissue that surrounds all of those axons. And so it turns all of those nerve fibers into a nerve. And so this whole thing, this whole structure here, this is a nerve here. So a nerve is a bundle of nerve fibers, makes up a nerve. A bundle of nerve fibers makes up a nerve. Now, can you see the part where it gets really big here? Where those nerve bodies are? That's given a special name. I don't expect you to remember any of this from A&P, but it would be good if one of you remembered. Does anyone remember the name of that knot-like swelling on a nerve? It's called a ganglion. Does it sound familiar? Okay, that's a ganglion. That's a ganglion. That's that knot-like swelling. And so if you think about it this way, when the information comes in from the skin, for example, it comes in from the skin, those nerve bodies process that information just a little and then sends it on to the spinal cord. And that's what it does. Now, if you look at, let's go somewhere else. Also going to a muscle, there are going to be lots of nerve fibers lot of nerve fibers going to the muscle. Now, each of those, individually, those are not nerves. They're just nerve fibers or axons. And again, it is surrounded by a layer of connective tissue. That layer of connective tissue wraps and bundles up those nerve fibers. And that bundle of nerve fibers, what is that bundle of nerve fibers called? A nerve, exactly. But if it's a motor, if it's coming from the spinal cord and going to the muscle, there is no ganglion. There is no ganglion. So nothing that I'm talking about now is really of interest to us, which is sad. I know that's sad. But, and again, this one here is going to be the same way. We won't even talk about this one. The one that senses information from your organs. There could or could not be ganglia. That's not important. But the one that I'm going to talk about here is going to be this one. The one that sends information to your organs. To your organs. Okay, now I haven't drawn it exactly right here. Let's see if I can find that one. There are lots of layers here. I want to find that one. There it is. There it is. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm going to like erase here just a little. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to put, I guess I could erase it just a little more. You may want to see what I'm doing first before you erase. Okay. I'm going to make this a little, I'm going to use a convention here. This round circle here, that's going to be my nerve ending. That's a nerve ending. You know, at the end of nerves, you have those synaptic knobs that release your neurotransmitters, but we'll talk about this if you don't remember. There are synaptic knobs that release your neurotransmitters. And also, I'm going to make another convention here. I'm going to make this look like a triangle. These are going to be like my dendrites here. And that's going to be my nerve body. That's going to be the soma of the nerve. Now, there are going to be several of these. So just like before, I'm going to make these smaller here. So you may have one here. I'm going to put quite a few here. You're going to have several of them. I don't want to draw a whole lot of them, but just believe me, there are lots of them. But what's going to happen, just as before, you're going to have a layer of connective tissue that surrounds. It's going to go down. A layer of connective tissue is going to go around here. And now, this layer of connective tissue, see if I can get this here. And there we are. Okay. Now, what is that bundle of nerve fibers called? What is that bundle of nerve fibers called? A ganglion. No. A nerve. A nerve. And what is that bundle of nerve bodies called that not like swelling? That's the ganglion. Now, this is the one that we're most concerned with. Okay? So let's do a quick little review. There are 4 parts of the peripheral nervous system. Let's see if you can identify them. So here we have one that senses, this first one here, let me put an arrow here so you can see it. This first one here that senses information from the skin or the body. Which division of the peripheral nervous system is this? Somatic sensory. Very good. Okay, here we have one that senses information from the organs. What is this called? Visceral sensory. Very good. Here we have one that sends information to the muscles. somatic motor. And we have one here that sends information to the organs. Visceral motor. Very good, very good. Excellent. Now, here's the concept that I need you to realize. Depending on the situation, or, well, let's just do it this way. If something hits your skin or something touches your skin, you're going to always feel it. Your body doesn't need to change any situations. You're going to always feel something that touches your skin. Your body doesn't have, it doesn't vary with the situation. However, let's say you're running away from, let's say you're in a room with a big dog, a big vicious dog. And you need to do either two things. You need to either run away from the dog, just run away from him for a long time until you get tired and he eats you, or you can fight the dog. You can do one of those two things. Now, if you just think about it, and let's say, now we have this nerve here going to the stomach. So we need to prepare our body to either fight that dog or to run away from that dog. Do we want the stomach to have more, at this point, do we want the stomach to have more activity or less activity? Less activity, because the stomach is not going to be able to help you fight against the dog. Digesting food at that moment will not help you fight the dog or run away from the dog. Does that make sense? What about your kidneys? Your kidneys produce urine. At that moment in your life, would you need more activity to go to the kidneys or less activity? Less activity, because that's not a time to make urine. That's not going to help you to deal with that dog. Make sense? So this portion of the nervous system, the one that goes to the organs, is the one that's going to vary with the situation. Your muscles, you control what your muscles do. You always control what your muscles do. So there is no automatic control to tell your muscles to move or not, because you control that. However, telling your organs what to do, you don't do that automatically. You don't do that voluntarily. Your body does that automatically. This part, there are 4 parts of the peripheral nervous system. And so let's go back now and let's look at our chart here. It's this one, the one that tells here, the one that tells your organs what to do. The visceral motor division. It is given a special name. Your body controls this one automatically. And so this is controlled automatically. Depending on the situation, you don't control this one. Now, this portion of the peripheral nervous system, and this is the only one we're going to talk about, is given a special, because it's so important to biochemistry and pharmacology and to medicine, it's given its own special name. Does anyone remember what the visceral motor division of the peripheral nervous system is called? Anybody remember? That's okay. Somebody say something? It has the parasympathetic output is part of it, and sympathetic output is part of it. I tried to give you a hint when I said automatic. It's auto something, but no, not autoimmune. Autonomic. It's the autonomic. It's the autonomic nervous system. So now, this is the part of the nervous system that's controlled automatically. And what we're going to be doing in the next class is we're going to be learning how does the body tell the autonomic nervous system when it should when it should be active, when it should not be active, when to give blood and nutrients to the organs, when to take that blood and nutrients away from the organ. So if you're running from a dog, for example, let's see if you can figure this one out. You're running away from the dog. Should you give more blood and nutrients to the heart or take blood and nutrients away from the heart? You should give it to the heart. And that's why it's called the autonomic nervous system, because your body controls this part of the nervous system automatically depending on whatever situation you're in. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. And in the next lecture, we'll look at the well, we won't get to the biochemistry probably until the third lecture, but in the next lecture, we'll come up with a great scenario of what's going on there. Any questions? Any questions? Okay.
What did you say on the stomach fibers when the other drawing? You said that the one coming out with the circle and was the nerve end, and then you had the triangle with the things, the hairs coming off of it. What did you say that was called?
Okay. Let's see if I can find that. Let me find this nerve here. It's right. I think it's right here. Okay, here it is. Okay. Here, just for us, because I'll be making this drawing a lot here. I'm gonna label this here. These are gonna be our nerve endings. These are going to be our nerve endings, and then these are going to be our nerve bodies, or our neuronal bodies, or our neurosomas. And this is going to be, this is the nerve body. Okay. Everything makes sense. It's important that things make sense. Because if it makes sense now, it's going to be a lot easier once we get into the biochemistry. Okay. Any more questions? Okay, I'm going to stop this.